Crystal Palace will not participate in Europa League next season. Here is the reason why Crystal Palace will not play in Europa League next season, despite them earning a spot. Crystal Palace, guys, won FA Cup last season after beating Manchester City in the final. And you know, as the rule says, guys, when a team from England wins FA Cup, that team earns a place in Europa League, despite of the position where that team will finish in the league. Like, for example, Crystal Palace finished position 12, but because they won FA Cup, they were to play in Europa League. But Crystal Palace will not play in Europa League because of these guys. There is a conflict called multi-club ownership conflict. This conflict is called multi-club ownership conflict. It is in Article 5 of UEFA, you understand, competition. The reason why Crystal Palace will not play in Europa League next season, because of multi-club ownership, guys. Regulation prohibits a single person from influencing two or more clubs. You understand? Crystal Palace owner John Textor. John Textor has shares in Crystal Palace. You understand, guys? He also has shares in Lyon. Lyon plays in Ligue 1 in France. So, because of John Textor having shares in Crystal Palace and Lyon, this is the reason why Crystal Palace will not play in Europa. You understand, guys? So, you cannot own two clubs and they participate in Europa or Champions League. For example, if I own Manchester United and I also own Arsenal, when they both qualify for Champions League, one must drop or both must drop. So initially, guys, Lyon was dropped. You understand? Initially, Lyon was dropped because it had some financial troubles, but they appealed, so they were reinstated back to Europa League. You understand? Lyon finished at position 6 in Ligue 1. You understand? While Crystal Palace finished position 12 in Premier League. Lyon qualified for Europa because they finished in position 6. But Crystal Palace qualified for Europa because they won FA Cup. So consequently, when Lyon was brought back, Crystal Palace was dropped. So guys, they appealed. Crystal Palace appealed to UEFA Club Financial Control Board, CFCB. You understand? So the case was ruled today, and guys, after the case was ruled today, it was found out that John Textor still has some shares in Crystal Palace, despite of him selling it on March 1st this year. But he sold it after the deadline. So guys, the case was ruled today, and Crystal Palace was demoted or regulated back to Conference League. So Crystal Palace will play in Conference League, but not Europa League. Just because, Crystal Palace went to a court of arbitration for sports, also called CAS or CAS. You understand? Arguing that lack of decisive control by Textor. You understand? But however, the courts ruled out that Crystal Palace must just play in Conference League. You understand? So Crystal Palace, who finished number 7, Crystal Palace, who finished in number 7, you understand, in Premier League, will now take place in Europa. So Crystal Palace has now been brought back to Conference League. You understand? And Nottingham Forest will now play in Europa. You understand? Because we cannot have two teams owned by same person playing same league like European competition. You understand? So after Crystal Palace was demoted, Nottingham Forest was promoted, because we must have one team. We must have one team playing in Conference League and Europa. You understand, guys? So Nottingham Forest and a spot in Europa League initially, because they finished number 6. But because Crystal Palace won FA, they displaced Nottingham Forest. So Nottingham Forest was brought back to Conference League, and Crystal Palace was given a Europa spot. But because of the ruling that was ruled today, Crystal Palace will now play Conference, then Nottingham Forest will play Europa. Guys, now you understand. In simple terms, Crystal Palace will not play Europa because of ownership conflict. John Textor, who has shares in Crystal Palace, he also has shares in Lyon. So Lyon will participate in Europa League because they finished in position 6. So they favored position. You understand? They favored position. So guys, I think that is what I will just tell you today. In May 17, Crystal Palace qualified for Europa League. You understand? Because they won FA. In March 1st, 2025, Textor still held influence in both clubs. In July 2025, UEFA decision to demote Crystal Palace, you understand, to Conference League. But Crystal Palace appealed, but the appeal did not go successfully. So they will simply participate in Conference League, while Nottingham Forest will play in Europa League. Guys, make sure you subscribe, Guys, subscribe and everything will be well. Bye bye.